when your skin is the weapon, there is no right answer. Rayshard Brooks ran and he's dead. George Floyd did not run and he's dead. We have 2.3 million people in American prisons and jails. We have twice that many on probation and parole. Rayshard Brooks was not simply running from the police. He was running from a system that makes slaves out of people, a system that marks people with the name felon. Once you're marked with that, in spite of heroic efforts to redeem your life, that sense of being maligned is inescapable. We close all of the available doors of reentry into a dignified life and a responsible citizenship. And so the outcomes, the high rates of recidivism in our prisons is actually quite predictable. If you have to check the box that says you've been arrested and you can't get a job and you can't get housing and you can't get benefits in order to make your way through college and educate yourself and better yourself, if you've already served your debt to society and you can't vote, that's a slave system. That's American chattel slavery, reduxed, repackaged for a new moment. This is about the fact that the land of the free is the incarceration capital of the world. It's always been clear to me that it's not my job to walk in Dr. King's shoes or to stand in his shoes. At best, what I've tried to do is stand on his shoulders. It is the recognition that we receive the baton in this great relay race from the generation before us. Dr. King did not spring ex nihilo out of nothing and out of nowhere. He's part of a grand and noble tradition. What most people don't know is that Dr. King's father led a voting rights campaign in Atlanta in 1935. Voting rights law passed due to the work of the next generation 30 years later, 1965. But even King's father had that work passed on to him. If you're engaged in a project that can be completed in your lifetime, you're thinking too small. We're in a moment that really is a moral moment in our country, a moment that requires all of us to think about the values, the high ideals, the grandeur of the human spirit and how all of that ought to be brought to the practice of governing and public policy. The American soul is scarred by what we have witnessed over the last few years, and we need voices of conscience. We need moral voices. Morality for me is a collective experience. It's a group project. It's not worked out by one individual in one moment or even in one period of human history. There are practices that went on for 2,000 years and more, like slavery, but the collective wisdom of the years has helped us to see the immorality of some things that we simply took for granted. Alfred Lord Tennyson, the great poet, said, "Our little systems have their day, they have their day and cease to be. They are but broken lights of thee, and thou, O Lord, art more than they." This project of morality, this project of what it means to be a good person and to build the good society is continuing. It is not fixed in one moment in time, and it is collective. I'm encouraged even in these dark and difficult days because I see citizens, ordinary citizens, standing up. We've been wrestling with COVID-19 all of these months, and then with the killing of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, we found ourselves wrestling again with what I call COVID-16-19, America's ongoing struggle with racism. In the midst of this, we saw a multi-generational, multiracial coalition of conscience pour out into American streets, literally risking exposure to one virus, but masking up in order to do battle against another virus. That for me gives me hope because it means that the American promise, the idealism embedded in our creeds is still very much alive in the hearts of ordinary American people. We need to keep marching on through November in order to reclaim the soul of our democracy and make sure that the planet is safe for all of our children.